All right. How's everyone doing? This is Mr. Anderson, True Crypto 28 on Twitter. Of course, you know that, being that I'm going to be releasing this in my own Telegram only for the most part. So basically, I have some announcements to make, and I figure that instead of just posting it on Telegram, which I will do, a lot of this is going to need some explanation, and I'm trying to avoid what's going to be 5 million questions because that slows everything down, right? So I'll try to get through as much as possible. I'll try to be as detailed as possible without extending things, which I have a tendency to do. And then basically it's this. So I've been speaking about this process for a while, and my goal here has been to move towards a live trading platform, something to where it's interactive to some degree, right? It's very hard to do live trading and sit there and read questions. So interactive actually is probably a word I shouldn't have used, but there will be some elements of being interactive. But mostly the point is that I can commentate as I'm trading myself. So more lines of commentating than interaction. But regardless, there is going to be other times where I'm having a session of some sort that's more based on either review or teaching or anything along those lines. So I'm happy to do that as well. But ultimately, I am going to begin doing some live trading sessions. And I've been talking about this for quite a while. And what happened is I began the process of building out updates to True Vibration, right? Which are going to be very specific to giving signals and really just working on very sharp signals, right? Something that gives an explanation of like, hey, how is this a key signal right there that's going to allow someone to take this position perfectly? Well, simple view here, green, divergence, it's a go time right at the bottom, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute, a little bit. But the reason why I brought that up is that in that process, hold on one second. In that process of going through that, something interesting happened where I had to retool some things. And by doing so, and like I said, I'll give a little more clarity on that in a minute, but by doing so, it allowed me actually to take things in a little bit of a different direction than I expected to do so, which I'm now realizing is really going to be a lot more beneficial for people, right? So I'm rambling on a little bit. The short version is this. Anyone that wants to participate is within this channel, within the live streams, can do so. I'm going to give everyone a recommendation, right, which is going to be signing up for a couple platforms if you haven't already. The two platforms that I'm going to be utilizing during the live streams are going to be Prime XBT and Bing X, okay? Maybe there's going to be some other times when we roll into something else, but these are going to be the ones that I'm going to use the majority of the time. Why? Well, most of the reason relates to the fact that we're not going to have as many complications with different aspects of where people are located. Pretty much everyone seems to be able to access these no matter where they're at, even if they have to utilize a VPN perhaps, but they don't have a lot of complications with things such as KYC and things of that nature. So for various reasons, this is going to be why. And the reason why I bring it up here is you're not required to do either of these, but I know how this works is that people are generally going to want to participate, right? So I'm going to leave all this on Telegram as well. But I'm going to tell you a couple things because I did go to both of them and ask them to see what they can do, considering the fact that we're probably going to have some people signing up. And essentially what we came up with is on the Prime XBT, I'll give you a short explanation of both. Hold on one second. Hopefully I didn't just cough on you guys. I tried to hit my cough button. Not sure if it worked. Hopefully it did. But anyway, regardless, so Prime XBT, what we're going to do here is they have a 7% trading account bonus. I'm going to give you a very brief explanation of that. Essentially what that means is you deposit $10,000. You get $700 of trading account bonus to utilize for trades. You get to use it for an extensive period of time. You can trade it over and over and over again. If you turn that $700 into $7,000, it's yours, right? It's trading account bonus. If you deposit $100,000, it's $7,000. So they're giving you essentially 7% of whatever you're bringing into the site as a trading account bonus. Does that mean that you could take that bonus money out and go buy something on Amazon? Of course not. Then it wouldn't be bonus money. They're obviously in it for themselves as well, and they're looking to get you to trade on their site. So that's the idea behind the bonus money. But ultimately, there are significant benefits to that. and you'll be able to take advantage of it if you choose to in doing so. But ultimately, if you're going to be a part of the live trading or copying me or doing whatever you want to do, of course, I'm going to have disclosures and tell you why you shouldn't doing all these things, but I know how people are, and they probably will. The other one being X. With Bing X, this is going to be the link. I'm going to provide the link here on this particular video. I'll provide it on Telegram as well, so you'll be able to find it. But more importantly, I want to give you an explanation of the bonus that they have as well, because they have something very interesting also that I think a lot of people are going to like. Essentially what they're doing, the reason why I have this up here is you can have up to $9,200 in bonus money, right? The way that works, up to 50,000, they're essentially giving you these criteria to hit on a bonus structure. 100 would be a $10 bonus. 1,000, 100 goes up, and you can read from there obviously for yourself. Up to 50,000. At 50,000, it's a $5,000 bonus. That is essentially like a voucher that's going to give you the ability to make a trade, and that trade can be made at 10x. The whole reason for this video is really to kind of give a more detailed explanation of this so that I don't get a bunch of questions on it, right? So please don't hit me with them because I probably won't see them to begin with. So here we go. 50,000 gets you a $5,000 bonus. You could do a 10x trade on that. So essentially you'll be able to do a $50,000 trade, and it truly is bonus, right? Meaning that no matter what happens, if you somehow pick an asset that drops 80%, there is no negative effect to you at all on that $50,000 trade in that example. Also, in that day, if that asset went up 15%, you did great on it. It was a $50,000 trade. You made $7,500. No matter when you decided to sell it, essentially that day, you could cash out that amount of money and it goes straight to you. It's no longer bonus funds. It's now money in your account. So it gives you a free shot at it. But the benefit of this is it is cumulative in that as you hit each tier, if you put a 3,000 in, you would not only get the 300, but the 100. If you put 10,000 in, you'd get the 1,000, the 800, the 300, and the 100. So you would essentially have 5 of these that you can utilize as a 10x trade. 10,000, you get all of them underneath. 20,000, you get the 2,000 and all of them underneath. And then ultimately up to this 5,000 that I mentioned. And that's how you achieve the $9,200 max, which is essentially the total for all of these combined. And the cumulative trading volume that you have to hit is very reasonable if you're making any basic trades during that time period. As soon as you hit the cumulative trading volume, you are essentially going to be in a position to where you'll shortly thereafter receive the bonus. Now, one important thing here is I'm going to have a link specifically that you'll want to click on, which is this one, which takes you right to the bonus page. You do want to make sure that you at some point activate that bonus. This link will do that. Again, you'll find it multiple times, but if you see that you did not go into this activate bonus section, then you're going to want to go ahead and do so. By the way, for both of them, one thing about BNX is they said if you do have an account with me directly, remember this is a bonus that's through me specifically. So if it's an account through me, then you essentially just have to go to this page and sign up. You're okay. You don't have to do a new account. If you already have an account with them under someone else, you can make a new account. They probably don't want to hear me saying that, but the reality is if you use like a VPN, are they going to know? No, little birdie said no, they probably won't, unless you basically try to utilize your same email address and same VPN. So again, that's not for me to direct people one way or the other. That's completely up to you. But of course, if you have the opportunity to take care of a bonus, why wouldn't you? But essentially, both are good options. Why would you do this, right? Why would you want to get onto Prime or Bing X in these situations? Again, you don't have to. I don't mind anyone that's going to participate in this. Essentially, the problem is I know exactly what's going to happen, right? If you want, let's say I go in and I want to trade crude oil that day, right? All right, well, if I'm trading crude oil, then I'm going to be in a situation to where I pop up and say, hey, I'm getting alerts and I have these shorts on crude, and here I am setting up for these shorts. Oh, by the way, this is another announcement that I'll be making essentially, is that I went further with this and actually put in signals on top of the updates to True Vibration, which we'll speak about in much more detail. Don't ask me exactly when you're going to get these because I don't want to put a timetable on it. I always put my foot in my mouth when I try to set a specific date because I got to make videos for them and everything. So I'll release the new True Vibration and then this. But the point is this, is that I'll give you more details on that in a minute. We'll circle back to this. But the idea is that if I'm trading crude, well, you're not going to be able to do that anywhere but Prime XBT, right? So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm choosing them in reference to this. If I want to trade pound dollar, same thing. I can do that there essentially with significant leverage. I'll have that ability. But if I want Matic, all right, you might have it somewhere else as well, right? That might be a possibility for you to find it. But if you're in a position to where you're trying to trade alongside with me, or at least follow in real time or anything along the lines of what I'm looking at, then essentially that particular one is going to be on Bing or Prime, as I mentioned. Same thing, by the way. Oh, this is a good example. Bitcoin Cash, B Trash, right? You guys probably know me. Anyone that knows me knows how I feel about B Trash. I don't like it at all, right? It's a bunch of garbage. But I suddenly started getting a bunch of alerts on B Trash today. Oh, okay. And they were giving me longs, right? Okay, so this is a long, this is a long, this is a long, this is a potential long. Awesome. And I'll circle back to these charts in a little bit. And B Trash took off for some strange reason, okay? I don't care why. I don't get into things like news. I just follow charts. And essentially the chart says go, so I go. So I don't mind taking a piece of trash and turn it into something that has actual value. Hence why I trade it B Trash, okay? Let's see. What else do we have? I don't know if I chose anything else here. Probably not. But that's basically the summarized version of it, because there are a ton of assets, obviously, that these two companies will have that we'll be able to utilize, which I like that aspect of it as well, so that I'm not trying to put myself into a position to where I'm trading on XYZ and only 20% of the people have it and they can't participate. So do yourself the favor, at least get the account on both. Obviously, they have good bonuses available as well. That would be a way to go. Now, I'll circle back to that again at the end. I just wanted to kind of explain that. But there are some other elements here that I want to speak about right now. First is the updates of True Vibration. The signals that I just showed you, and I'll show them to you again, they came about from this process because I did these updates, right? And the updates were one where I essentially wanted to say, you know what, let me change the view, because the view that we had before is probably a favorite of most people still. So sorry. Hold on one second for me. Sorry about that. Happy wife, happy life. I had to give her an answer there. So the view that we had before, I love it. Many people love it. A lot of people kill it with that. And I would tell people to still use it. So you'll still be able to use it. This is not going to be a video where I go into detail about the new elements of True Vibration. But I do want to tell you that I brought in signals, right? Not only signals, but easier ways to see them, easier ways to play it, things that are going to be more proactive to both price and to the indicator in conjunction. So I did do that already. And then when I was doing that, something interesting happened. And I had to pull out one of the elements because of the size of the indicator. I had to pull out what's called the directional bias indicator. Everyone's still going to have it. I just had to separate it and give access to that separately. But in doing so, it made me start to think about, like, all right, how is this going to work? How am I going to implement the different elements together? And it put me on a path where I decided to begin to actually create signals, right? Which I said I would never do, as you guys know. But then I decided, I said, you know what? I know I can put the trending signals in there, right? So signals with trend is something I can do, not a problem. It's just that it's very hard to code some of these other specific elements, right? Like something like this that I showed earlier, which may not appear too clear to you guys on the screen because of the colors that I chose. But essentially, like, hey, this is a golden goose type of signal. Everything you want to see, the confluence, things lining up, etc. You're buying wholesale, for anyone that knows me and how I speak and my tactics. But the idea here is that this is something that is very obvious to a lot of us that are in the Discord community and things of that nature. But I also know that a lot of the guys that worked with me for a long time, and it's not their fault, this stuff is hard, right? A lot of the people that have been utilizing this tool, maybe they don't get it. Maybe it hasn't clicked. Maybe they can see it in hindsight. Maybe they can see me doing it, but it's not happening. And I'll tell you what, it started to bug me, right? It bugged me because I don't want people losing money. I damn sure don't want them losing money when they're utilizing tools of my own. And I wanted to try to make things easier for people, right? And I know still, even with getting the signals, right? There's an old saying by Livermore who said that, look, I could put my strategies in the morning paper and it won't matter. People are going to lose money. That sounds insulting, and it's not. It's just, it relates to comprehension, and comprehension is really everything in this game. And it just takes time to truly comprehend things. There are many things that I myself took 10 years to understand, and in my mind I thought I got it. And then one day I looked at it and I said, wait a second, I never viewed it that way. And then after that day, I never viewed it another way, if that makes sense to you. But the point of this is that I did go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to start adding some trending signals into this process, right? So that's what I wanted to do. So I'll give you some examples here. Now, what is a trending signal, right? So you see this orange line. I have this in here because that is essentially like the dividing line of trend typically. So I'll give you some understanding here. Essentially, some of these will look, sometimes you look from afar and you think, oh, they're squashed up. They're not good. No, nope. These are all pretty damn good trend signals, right? And ultimately what's going to happen is I'm also going to teach people in detail. So I'll release the true vibration hopefully by Monday at the latest, right? If I can get it through the weekend somehow, I will, but don't hold me to that at all. And then within a few days after, I'll release these signals as well as part of it to work in tandem. But I do want people to try to learn the true vibration tool as best as possible. But ultimately what's going to happen is that the signals themselves will create a situation to where you're going to see trending, right? What's trending mean? That means when we're in trend, it's giving me trend-based signals, right? So these are not counter-based signals. I have tools for counter-based signals, but I'm going to tell you, if you're going long, short, until you're an expert, you shouldn't mess with it. I know most people I know will either concentrate on counters or they'll concentrate on being with trend the majority of the time. There's people that love to range trade, and I get that, but you have to get to that point where you understand it. So the long story short here is that I'm going to do a few things with these. I'm going to be able to give people the access to really make money a lot easier. Doesn't mean you will, right? There's easy ways to mess this up, and it's not your fault, and you're not terrible if that happens, but we are going to work towards getting you on that path at least, and I'll try to give as much information as I can, and I'll pray and hope that it works. You're still going to be responsible to be a risk manager. You're going to take responsibilities for your own trade. You're not going to have to thank me when you do well, right? You certainly aren't going to blame me when you don't, because you're a responsible adult that takes care of himself and is responsible for himself, right? But ultimately the point is I'm going to show just about everything I do and the way I go about things, including things like how I treat every position, right? So I've explained this before. I'll give a very brief example. If I had a trade, if I was trading $50,000, some people would say, I'm going to take a $50,000 trade, and that could be 5,000 or 500, doesn't matter. I'm just using a round number. Well, I don't trade it as 50,000. I trade it as 25 and 25. And this is every single trade that I do. I don't care what time frame I'm on. I'll do it like this every step of the way. You might say, well, what does that even mean? Why do you do that? Well, I'll enter the trade as one, right? So it doesn't matter which one of these you pick. I enter a short. Now, it doesn't matter if I'm on the 5 minute, the 4 hour, or anything along those lines. What I'm going to do with that is that I'm going to utilize a time-based stop, because that's another story. I'll give a better explanation of it when I make the video for here. But ultimately, typically that time-based stop is one, either I get an extensive move immediately and I'll take profits, right? So let's just say, even for the sake of this conversation, if this was my entry, but the next candle was this big one, I'm probably taking the profit on that 25K right then and there. Right then and there, especially if at the end of this, it begins to look like it's some sort of ranging candle. But regardless, any type of sizable tail, any type of move into a support, etc., right then and there, I'm going to take profit on that first 25K, because I treat half of it like a scalp. A scalp could be a 5 minute scalp, could be a 4 hour scalp, could be anything like that. Based on a scalp is going to be based on how many candles, right? And typically I'm keeping it at 2 candles or even less at times, right? And I'll get into the explanation of risk reward and how it does make sense, because what I'll tell you is my hit rate on those is unbelievable. So I'm going to teach that in much greater detail as to why I do that. And I think it's going to change many people in a dramatic way, okay? Because I'm only looking for that. My data is based on what's going to happen right now, right? So ultimately I'm expecting something to happen pretty damn quick. And when it doesn't, well, let me get out. Let me take some profit if they're there. Let me let off some of the risk, unless I'm really just broke through a resistance and feeling extra good about it. Not to mention the fact that I'm one that likes to, whether short wholesale and buy it back at a retail price, meaning to my benefit, or for people to understand better, if I was buying, I want to buy wholesale and sell retail. And I've spoken about that extensively too, and I'll continue to talk about it. But the idea is this: shorts and shorts. Potential short, that's what that PS is, shorts here. What you'll notice is that these are all dropping down. Now, there's going to be plenty of times where we lose money as well, but I'm just making a point here that you'll notice that a couple candles later, it's lower. A couple candles later, it's lower, right? A couple candles later, it's lower. And we're going to talk about shedding and how to work off some of the positions and things of that nature, and how it's going to be substantially beneficial to you. But some of this is even choppy, right? What I'm going to show you is that when things aren't choppy, you got something like this, right? Where you say, all right, in a good position, but ultimately I now also am about to run into a runner like that. And how can you tell the difference? Well, one of the ways just a very brief example, but I'm just trying to give some examples of how I'm going to look at things. I can tell from this already. If I go to a 12-hour, 200, that's a 200 EMA on the 12-hour. What I'm going to look for is a little bit of confluence here. Okay, let's just see where I'm at here and say, all right, well, if I have a runner and that loses a higher time frame moving average, you don't have to learn this right now. I'm telling you the kind of things that I'm just randomly thinking of that are going to help. Well, that's going to let me know that, okay, well, now not only am I in a position to where I'm on the right time frame, but I'm also losing a dynamic support on a higher time frame, and therefore what? Bigger chance of this dropping, right? Going range bound or something along those lines. Excuse me, going to a bear trend or something along those lines. And when things start to trend, you're going to crush it with these types of signals. I mean, you really are going to crush it. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I don't mind pointing it out to you. It's not bragging or anything along those lines. Let me just go through different time frames so you could see it. Let's show a 12-hour, right? You notice we're near a pivot, near a pivot, near a pivot, right? Now this one, what happens here is you might look at this and this is going to be about time frame understanding. Well, no, it's not going to be a 12-hour in that situation, right? Because you had one of these. I'm going to look closer at something like a 2-hour in that circumstance, right? Probably a 1-hour, etc. If I want to hit on some of these specific, now I'm on a 4-hour chart, so obviously I should go to a 2-hour if I'm going to do that. But the idea here is that you're going to notice, forgive me, I have a 1 and a 2, that's why it looks crazy. You're going to notice that if we're picking the proper time frames, and we're going to talk about how do we do that. And again, always zoom in so you can truly see that these are actually probably a lot better than you're realizing. You're getting pivots and pivots, right? I'm a guy who buys pullbacks essentially, right? You say, oh, what about this? You missed it. Well, one you might have missed, right? But also it's back to that time frame understanding element, right? Say, okay, well, yeah, it's because I'm getting a little close for trend on that time frame. I'm going to have to look at some different time frames for that to come into play. But ultimately, it's just an understanding, hey, am I trending? Am I not trending, etc. So this is going to be something that I think for a lot of people is going to be a bit of a game changer, right? And then ultimately, when you get into those turbo runs like this, I mean, again, not only are you generally expected to kill it anyway in these times, and an indicator better do well, but we're not going to just do well in these times. We're going to be damn near perfect, right? And I don't hesitate to say that because I've done it before, right? So if the conditions are right, we'll kill it in those moments. But they're not always right. Sometimes they're more choppy, and we'll talk about protection, things of that nature. But we play it this way to understand that, hey, we're hoping for continuation. We're hoping we're going to find something. We have ways to utilize this tool, which can help us to exit, right? So you see something like this, right? You say, well, what is this going to tell me on this particular time frame, right? We say, oh, well, it's telling me that there's some trouble in paradise, right? So I have a bear divergence that appears on this particular indicator up at the top. Now, maybe you're on this time frame, maybe you weren't. I'm never trying to act like there's perfection. I'm just making a point that you can utilize this particular indicator to put yourself in a better position. You'll even find that on these particular time frames, like if we go to a very low time frame, let me show you, that we will be able to even find ourselves some shorts, right? Very quickly in a process, right? Now, I'll tell you that we're going to talk about the fact that we're probably not going to look at shorts, especially when you have a roaring bull market like that. But ultimately, you can still find it. But not only that, you can put yourself into a position to where now we can really just get as detailed as possible with how we go about finding these pivots that we like to find, okay? Don't know if that made sense from that standpoint, but the key here is that I do know that these are going to make a lot of difference. I do have a couple things that I have to straighten out with this. You could probably see from all that you just seen up there that I've been running a lot of tests ultimately. And I do have some fixes already that are ready to go, which will basically clean up a lot of the stuff that was seen there. So really, the end result is already better than that. Technically, what I probably should do is wait several weeks to put that out, but I'm going to run a poll on our Discord, which is the private group for everyone that utilizes True Vibration. And I'll ask them if they just want me to put out the signals next week and kind of create it like a work in progress type thing, because there is already significant edge to those signals. And I'll let them decide, but knowing that crew, they're going to say, yeah, just release it, right? So that's the reality. So like I said, Monday at the latest, I will release the latest updates on True Vibration. At least that's the plan, unless some dramatic thing happens. And then shortly thereafter, we will go ahead and release the signals as well. And you're going to find out that in concert, we're able to put ourselves, meaning utilize them together, we're going to put ourselves in a position where we really genuinely can we can create a scenario where we ultimately find sharper ways around these. You might look at it already and say, well, what are you talking about? It looks great, right? Which is true. But when you're in real time, you don't have the ability to look in hindsight and say, oh, yeah, it was such an obvious short. But we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the key moving averages that are going to help you with that. I'm going to talk about utilizing, moving averages on multiple time frames, as I mentioned, which are also going to give you more insight, right? So again, something like this, a little bit of a cross here, is going to create an environment to where this is actually a perfect example right here, because I can tell this is a perfect signal. So let me just go ahead and give one example real quick, because I can see it happening already, even without the tool. But the tool will help others essentially to see these things a little bit more clearly. So what's happening here? This, for anyone that's wondering, is a 12-hour 200 EMA, okay? And I'm in a situation where the 4-hour now crosses below it. Okay, so very quickly, just as a brief understanding, I am now in a situation where I don't just need to claim the 200. I need to claim that 200. I need my other moving averages to cross over, right? And then I would need to start holding them as support. I've given this example and taught this many different times, but that's the normal situation without this green line here. When this green line is here, it's completely different. Now, in reality, what needs to happen is price has to take both. Price has to come back slow enough for these moving averages, including this orange, right? So all these moving averages will also have to cross. The orange will have to cross above this green as well. And then we're going to have to see this hold as support for this thing to eventually get going, right? And why is that such a key? Because the moment I get this rejection, especially getting it in a situation where, look, you see this? See how price went up? The close is higher. But what happens here? You're in a situation to where the momentum on true vibration is much lower. So by looking at this, we can get a little more advanced and understanding that this is one hell of a short. We have a pin bar into the 200 rejection. It's even worse. It's a claim loss, right? So we claim it and lose it, all happening under a higher time frame bear signal. And that's a signal that does not even appear here on this particular, on my, let's see what we have here. It's not going to appear, but it probably will. This is where we get into time frame management and understanding time frames. But you're in a position here to where we say, all right, basically we could search around here and probably find a nice signal. But if I don't, it's okay. I'm just trying to. No, okay, so it didn't pick up, which is even better. This is why I tell people push to understand this as well. And this is a longer process than I understand. But you're going to create an environment to where you're going to get this, right? There's a lot of reasons why you would have went for that as well. I'm going to show you the horizontal, which is really the most important element right here. So we basically had break of structure. This was our range top. Pull all the way back. We're fighting hard. We're starting to show some positive signs. But in reality, what did it do? Nothing but a rejection. So all these elements of confluence, I know it looks messy here, but I did want to show you that in conjunction with that. And then if I can, just really quickly, you'll see how this story that I was telling you continues to happen, right? It has to do both. It has to do both. It's problematic, right? Until you get to a position to where finally we're trying to fight that happening over here, and it essentially just hasn't happened even yet, right? You still haven't had that environment to where price, going back to that example, has maintained itself long enough to hold these levels and go, which is what was necessary. In fact, it even scooped all the way over here and lost it again, which is another bear reaction, why you got this type of reaction as well. Because ultimately, you do need that cross. You do need price to come back, show those dynamics as support, and then run again. And the opposite happened there, and that's why you popped up with this short, which in this case did appear, because again, you're in a circumstance to where you're having multi-time frame confluence, again, divergence showing up as well, and would be able to put yourself into a position where you say, all right, we're red. And when we're red, what are we looking for? We're looking for an exhaustion, short. We're looking for, even better, an exhaustion with divergence, hidden divergence, short again, right? And that's how you can start to find these things with significant edge. Now, one thing I didn't show you, which I should have definitely focused on here, and then I'll leave this for now, is to let's just get rid of just about everything, including this for now. And I'm going to show you the last thing to keep you guys pumped up here, which is going to be the fact that really I kind of started down the road of saying, you know what, I know people love to scalp. That's their thing. Everyone wants to scalp. So I said, let me just create a scalper that's going to allow people to do some trend scalping and to be aggressive in finding significant winners via scalping, because that was a huge request that I was getting, right? So this particular tool does it all in terms of that. Now, again, we'll be able to utilize True Vibration itself to make these even sharper. But what you'll end up noticing, again, as we zoom in, is that these are scalps. They're going to be 2 candles and then reassess, right? So no matter what, if it's 2 candles lower, I'm taking profits or getting out. Again, same thing. 2 candles, get out. Some of these, you're still going to have a stop that's 1 ATR above. So remember, when I say get out, what I really mean is that you're going to put yourself in a position to where if you have profit, you're going to take profit on that half a position that I discussed and then kind of play it from there as a trailing stop. But the idea is that you'll see these groupings here, and guess what's happening? Big drop. This one here just hung around, no big deal. Even some of these where it's choppy, it's fine. But then look what happens. The payoffs, right? You start to see payoffs. And I'm a guy that likes a lot of signals, right? So all of these, if you're going 3, 4, 5 candles, that's going to be profit. What you also don't notice is you see very few where you enter and they're just running the other way. It can happen. You can get chopped up, but it's not happening, right? So you see here to here, even to there. I'm happy to take half the profit right there, and then I'll probably see if it wants to extend. If I got a ranging candle, I'm probably out at that point, right? But we'll talk about that in tremendous detail. Again, scalp, in, out. Oh, finally, here's one that kind of went the other way. We're out 1 ATR above this high right there, out, no problem. Guess what? This is trading. That happens. When you see these multiples, those won't be there by there. I'm just running some different tests, etc. Guess what? Come down for a leg, no problem. I'm in here, boom, I'm in there, no problem, etc., etc. And then again, I'll talk about the fact that we can look to understand that, hey, there's times that we're going to have to move time frames. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. Why did you say you're going to stay on these low time frames during this drop, et cetera, et cetera? So that's been the most popular question that I've been getting. I'll probably have an M15 in there, but just to go off the M5, and you can see like, oh, you can get a little bit more sharper with these as well. I love M15. M15's something that I started doing in equities in my early days, essentially. So I've always had a tendency to lean towards that, and you can kind of see and have an understanding, and we'll talk about this as well, to understand how if someone doesn't like to take that many scalps, maybe you want to become much more accurate with your scalps as well, then I can put on a filter to explain to you like, hey, above this line, you won't take any shorts, right? And I can go back to this 5 minute, because sometimes the 15 minute does this. So, we can look at a green line like this and say, hey, anything you see short above, we're not going to look at it, right? Or if we do, we're only going to look at it as a mean reversion to that line. And that can help as well, right? So you see a short here, we're mean reversion to that level, right? You see short here, we're only expecting it to go to that level. It might drop through, but that's not our expectation. If we get a short below it, yes, we're happy to take that, right? Longs, by the way, again, I don't want you to forget, zoom in on these to understand that you're getting far more than 2 candles on many of these where you're going to collect on some profits. Some you get chopped out and you take a loss. That's okay. That's trading, especially when you're on a 5 minute chart. But ultimately, I think most people can kind of see the significant edge that's included there, right? So same thing here. If I was shorting, I'm expecting it to come mean reversion to that particular level. Otherwise, these shorts here, I'm not even looking at it, right? I'm sky high away, and these guys are making their way to each other. So they still work, by the way. Again, when I zoom in, I don't want you guys to misunderstand that these are shorts that work. So I'll let you guys make those decisions. I was just making a comment for people that are trying to say, hey, you know what? Let me go more for accuracy than anything else. And with that, I can give them some tools that say, hey, look, when we're in this environment above green, we'll take long scalps in that situation. The signals will work regardless, whether you're using this as an extra filter or not. And then beyond that, we can utilize this, and I'll teach that as well, to sharpen it even further. But with scalping, you got to be quick, right? So you're going to look at one thing, a little bit of confluence, yes or no, do I like it? Am I getting orderly momentum, yes or no? And that's going to be your decision, because essentially that signal is going to pop up. You're going to wait for the close of that candle to make sure that that's where that signal remains, because obviously it can change before the candle close. But if the signal's there, you essentially want to have your decision ready and pushing the buy button as of that point when you're in a scalp, because of course this could happen, right? So the last thing you want is you're diddly-daddling saying, well, should I? And then it takes off within 5 minutes and you're kicking yourself in the face ultimately. So you can kind of see where we're getting at here. Hopefully that pumps people up. I think it should. That brings me back to the original point again, though. If you are going to be involved in that, it's a pretty simple process. You're definitely going to want to have an account. So feel free to go down that road. Essentially, I will put everything in place that you need to know about Right, do I have it here? No, it's right there. Once again, but again, I'll put this on Telegram and everywhere else that's needed, including within this particular video. I messed this up pretty good. Let's see if I can fix it. Not too well, but you get the point here. And again, it's good to have both just in case something really big comes up that we can take advantage of together, and we'll go from there. Hopefully everyone's good. Again, we'll talk about this in the coming days. I just wanted to prep everyone because when the time comes, essentially it's just going to be like, all right, we're off and running. If someone wants to send me some recommendations of a platform, for now we're probably going to utilize YouTube. But if someone has a better suggestion of where we should do the live trading, something that's not a paid platform, no one ever pays me for anything, so everyone understands that. Also, if you're trying to get True Vibration or you've been trying to do it, bump that message, because once I make this announcement of the changes and things of that nature, we're going to be flooded yet again with the requests, and I only have one person that takes care of those, right? So forgive me on that, but it is what it is, and if we get hung up on a bunch of questions, it's something to where it is going to take even longer. There's certainly a delay. By the way, that one person that I have that does it, they have another full-time job that I have them working on, essentially. So it's something to where you have to understand that we create an environment to where we're trying to give you access and go down that path, but sometimes it gets a little more complicated than it needs to be. Again, keys are don't pay anybody, right? No one pays me for this, and put yourself in a position to where if you think that this is something that's going to benefit you, then go for it. Otherwise, just stick around for the free material, and I'm happy to continue to provide it. Hopefully provide a little bit more guidance for people that need it. I'm out for now. We'll talk soon.